Welcome to the 84 Lumber Estimating Video Training Program. Today we're going to cover square takeoff. During today's video, we're going to cover a few things, such as the basic product overview, how to create a new project, how to upload your plans, how to rename and rearrange pages, how to add additional pages to your project, how to scale a page, how to complete a basic takeoff. We will then get into the estimating overview, covering such things as what are parts and templates, how to create a template, how to complete an estimate using templates, and ultimately how to export your estimate to Excel. Let's get started. To get started, go to squaretakeoff.com. In the upper right hand corner, select Login. Once you select Login, you'll come to the login screen. Here you'll enter the information that was sent to you, and that information is your username, which is your company email, and also the password that was provided. At this point here, go ahead and select Login. Once you select the login key, you'll first arrive at the dashboard. The dashboard gives you a high-level view of everything that's currently going on within projects. For example, bids due versus bids awarded. You can see this in a couple different formats. You can also separate this by quarter, month, or week. You can also see weekly how many bids that you have due, and also how many projects you have starting, in case we are doing the installed sales aspect. You can also create a new project from this screen, view their sample plan, and also see any updates they do to the software. We also have located to the left-hand side your bid management calendar, your estimating, and at the top we also have a dashboard, bid management, a shortcut to their website, and also some of their YouTube videos. Let's go ahead and get started with creating a new project. To create a new project, you can do this one of two different ways. You can select Create a New Project here on your dashboard, or if you'd like, you can simply select the bid management. Once you go to bid management, you can select Create a New Project. Within this view, you're going to see your calendar, and this calendar will display all jobs that you currently have listed. You can also look at the list view very quickly and see if there's any in here. Since this is a new project and a new first time I've logged in, I do not see any current jobs. So let's go ahead and create a new project. By selecting the Create New Project button, we can open up and see all the input fields that we need to fill out. The first thing that we need to select is the company name. Let's select the 84 Lumber Company. We select the owner, which is myself. We also provide a project name. Within this project name, you can put everything such as the builder, the community name, so forth and so on. The project rating is simply a way to rate the project. The way I like to explain this is, for example, if you're dealing with multiple different builders, sometimes you have a higher win rate versus one builder versus the other. We can utilize this project rating to allow for us to rate based off of our win ratio with a builder. So for example, if builder A, we win about 75 to 80% of the time, we may want to provide them with a 4-star rating. If builder B is a new builder we've never dealt with, and we have not really won anything from them because it's the first time we've dealt with them, we may want to provide them with a rating star as 1. Where this is beneficial is if you come up against a clock on 2 bids that are due, you can look at these bids and see which one you have a better chance of winning. We also have statuses. Underneath here, we have statuses such as new, approved, initial review, estimating, pricing, and so forth and so on. This is a workflow that you can provide and fill out as you're going through your project. So for example, as a new project, before you start estimating, you're simply going to leave it as new. Once it's time to start estimating this project, you can go through and select estimating. The most important one is once we have this project awarded, we want to make sure we select project awarded. And if we lose the bid, we want to also make sure we select lost bid. These are 2 required fields for everyone to fill out. So once again, if the project becomes awarded, and as an 84 lumber company, we are shipping material to that site, we want to make sure we select project awarded. If we lose that bid, we need to make sure that we select lost bid. Bid due date. Within your bid due date, you can select your bid due date that you will have this project due. So let's say, for example, I received the blueprints today, and that we know that the bid is due on Friday. Let's go ahead and select the 21st. We can also select the time that this is due, such as 4 p.m. Our project start date isn't until May, so let's go ahead and let's go over here to May, and we know that the project's going to start on May 1st, and it's going to start at 8 a.m. We can now go ahead and select our contact information. Within this contact information, this is the information that you'd want to enter for your builder or your contact at your builder or client. So let's say, for example, just John Smith. Let's put in just some random information here. And at this point here, you can fill out an email for them. You could select the address, the city, the state, zip code. Once again, this information is here. For example, if you're in the field and you need to contact this information, you'll have this here at the tip of your fingers and be able to contact them based off of this information. If your project manager or whomever you're dealing with at your client level changes, you can easily come in and always adjust this accordingly. Project details. Within your project details, obviously we're going to select unit of measure as imperial. We have Keller. At this point here, this allows for us to color code our projects. So for example, if you're using one color for a certain builder, it just gives you a quick high level view. If for example, we go with this green here, say that this builder here, we utilize green. So if I look at my calendar very quickly, I can see that on this date, I have a project due for this builder because I utilize this color. So it's just another way to color coordinate and keep yourself organized. The next 2 values, estimated total project and estimated bid value, are very important. The estimated total project, not as much as bid value. We would like to require that whenever we enter in our estimate into the point of sale system and we have a final bid value calculated, and as we submit that bid, we should come back into the product and enter this information in. So for example, we could say that maybe this is a $25,000 bid value. So we'd come back and we'd enter in the $25,000 bid value. Now what this does, this gives us an opportunity to look at a high level of how many projects were awarded and what those total values were for each month. So once again, it's just another tracking system for us as an individual to be able to see where our projects are and how much value we have out there. Project notes. Within our project notes, we can type in any type of information. So for example, if we would like to type in information that's unique to this project, such as material to be quoted or any specifications that we need, we can select this here. Also, our select files, our reference documents, we can upload any type of documents. So if we did receive a specification folder, if we also received any other type of documents, such as throughout the project, any type of RFIs or so forth and so on that we need to attach to this project, we can attach to this project. The main goal of utilizing this software is to allow for us to have a central repository for all of our products and all of our information for this project, whether it's job site photos, whether it's some type of documentation and concerns to installed cells, whether it's our estimates coming out of our point of sale system, whatever it is, we like to keep this information all housed and centralized within one location. So once again, we can reference these documents if we are in the field or at any time we need to grab these documents and take a look at them. So at this point here, we're going to go hit save, and you can see that it's created this project here. To re-access this project, you can simply double click and it will reopen this. You can come back in, once again modifying any of this information, such as the project notes, add additional files, so forth and so on. One more thing that I would like to point out is if you want to share this project with, for example, one of your subcontractors in the field or with the builder that you're dealing with, you can share your projects. By being able to share your projects, you can simply enter in their information. You can select a time frame in which you would like to share this to, and you can also allow them to edit. And according to this, it says only paid users will be allowed to edit. So if they are a paid user, they will be allowed to edit your estimate. Once again, if you don't want to allow for them to edit, do not select this. But then once again, you can go ahead and select this time frame. So maybe you want to save this with them till the end of the project, or to the end of the bid due date, or maybe even a week past when the bid was due. So that way they could take a look at this bid, review what you've estimated, so forth and so on. Once again, you just simply enter their information in here and you can send that over. Now, from my understanding, they will receive an email. Once they receive that email, it will notify them that you are sharing a project with them. They can simply select the link within there. If they are not a current subscriber or currently do not have a version of this product, they can sign up for that version, and it is a free viewer that will allow for them to view their files. So once again, if you need to share your project with your builder, this is an opportunity to do it. So let's go ahead and let's select close here. Okay, now that we've created our new project, it's now time to upload a set of blueprints. If we select off of this here, you'll see that there's no green takeoff button. Once we select the project, a green start takeoff button will appear. Simply select it, and it will now allow for you to drag and drop or browse to open up your plans. At this point here, I'm going to go ahead and grab a file of plans. To upload your digital files, if you receive them in an email or possibly via a disk or from a plan room, you want to first save those to your desktop. So for example, as you can see, I saved this to a desktop folder called Plan Images. Once you save that to your desktop folder, you can go ahead and add these items to your upload screen. Once again, you could browse out and simply select these files, but you can also go through and simply select the files that you'd want. So for example, I could go through, select the ones that I want. Maybe I don't want the electrical, and I really don't care about the site plan, and we'll leave that there. And let's go ahead, and all I need to do is drag them up here, and once I drag them up, you'll see that it changes to drop files here to upload. Once I do that, it will go through and upload. So very quickly it will go through. Now once you see this here, this is displayed green, it will show done, and it will allow for you at this point here to continue. The files that they currently work with are JPEGs, TIFF, PNG, BIPs, GIFs, and PDF files. If by chance you are dealing with an AutoCAD file such as a DWG or DWF file, and you need to have that file converted to a PDF, please let me know. I can help you with that, and you can reach me on my email at matt.miller, M-I-L-L-E-R, at 84lumber.biz, and we can get those converted to you and back to you very quickly. Let's go ahead and hit continue. Once I select continue, I can see that all my pages here are located on the left-hand side. Now, for example, if not all these pages were converted and available here, you would want to hit the refresh button. You can also check and make sure that all these pages were converted by simply selecting the notification bell located in the upper right-hand corner. Within here, you'll see that we had 0 files queued, and that is basically the files waiting to be processed. And then we also have 0 files processing, and we had 8 files finished. Just to explain what this does is once you upload your files will go through a conversion process, which will convert them down to a better file format that will allow for the system to run even faster and also limit the amount of storage that we have in the cloud. So if we are uploading large projects, it may take a few moments for it to upload. Once those are uploaded, you'll see that this says 100%, basically all files have been finished. Once again, just simply select the refresh button here, and it will refresh those pages. And it will allow for all those pages to be displayed here on the left-hand side. If you need to delete pages, for example, such as maybe the cover page, you can simply select the delete button, type yes to delete that page, hit delete, and there we go. If we would like to rename any of these pages, it's just as simple as double clicking. So for example, we double click the front elevation, it pops up the rename page. Simply come in and type it in. You can do that to all these pages down through here very quickly. Until they are complete. And there you go. Now, if I would like to rearrange these pages, for example, put the basement plan first, I simply grab and select the basement plan, drag it into location, move it up here. I can then do the exact same thing with the floor plan. I can move it into place where I want it, move the roof plan, adjust the rear elevation here, and there we go. So very quickly and easily, I can rearrange my pages as need be. Now, if I would need to add additional pages to this, I can simply select the plus sign here located on the pages area. Once I select that, I can then once again browse out or drag and drop those plans onto this, just as I did when I originally uploaded those plans, and it will allow for more additional plans to be added. So for example, if we have a revised set of blueprints or any type of new documentation that need to be added, we can simply select the browse button and it will open this up. One other thing that I want to show everyone is the Google Maps integration. The Google Maps integration with the product is pretty slick. It provides us the opportunity to allow for us to simply go in, type in an address, simply hit search, and then very quickly go in here using Google Maps and export out this image. Now what that does is once we export this image out, it actually sets a scale utilizing Google's coordinates and allows for us to go ahead and do a takeoff or estimate from this image. So for example, if we have a client that is looking to do a selling some roofing material, for example, they are looking to sell some roofing material for a client to replace roofing on a house, we can go in and capture the Google image and allow for us to go in and complete that roof estimate. If, for example, we are selling erosion and settlement material, we can also utilize this a lot of the time to allow for us to indicate where a silt fence would be located. So just a lot of different avenues with this, but once again, once you have this here, you simply hit export. Once you select export, it will appear here, and then once again you can zoom in. You could do at this point here a complete estimate based off of this. Now the numbers are not going to be 100% exact, just for the simple fact that this is a satellite imagery, but it will be very close to get us in the ballpark and a lot closer than just guessing by walking out in the field. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's take a look. The next thing that we want to do is set a scale to a page. So let's go ahead and let's start with, for example, our floor plan page here. To get started to set a scale, what we want to do is we want to find a dimension line. Now what I always recommend is utilizing a dimension line that is the longest that you can find. For example, anything that is out to out, so outside corner to outside corner, total length across the bottom for this one is 39 feet 1 inch. Now there is also a 3/16 of an inch equals a foot here, where you can select that and drop that down and set that scale. So for example, if we go to the top when we want to set our scale, we simply select the scale button. Once we select the scale button, we can select the measurement type such as imperial. We can come in here and once again we can enter feet, inch, and fraction. So I could go 39 feet 1 inch, or once again you can simply drop this down and select your measurements here. Now the one thing that I have to say about this is when working in the digital environment, many of us out there have printed a set of paper blueprints off a digital file in the past, and have printed them to, for example, a 24 by 36. And a lot of the times those files, when printed and you throw a scale against it, aren't always correct. A lot of the time that has to do, in fact, to how the architect or the original designer transferred those files or converted those files out of their design software. The same thing continues on when utilizing an on-screen Takeoff program that basically utilizing those type of files would not set the scale correctly. So if I was to drop this down and very quickly select 1/4 inch equals a foot, my scale might not be correct. So to prevent that headache, I always like to tell everyone to please use the manual scale. Always select a line larger than 20 feet if possible. Sometimes using on elevations, for example, you're not always able to find a scale or a dimension line that is over 20 feet in length. Sometimes you have to utilize a vertical wall height that might only be 8 or 10 feet. And if that's the case, that is fine. You can simply utilize that. But at any chance possible, try to use a measurement or dimension line that is longer than 20 feet. So for this example, we're going to use the 39.1. So I entered 39 feet, 1 inch. If I would have had fractions, I could have also entered that in. I simply hit the start button. Once I select the start button, I could go through here. And all I'm doing is simply left clicking on my mouse. And it adds a point. I could then pan. And by panning, I am simply right-clicking on my mouse button, the right mouse button, and dragging the plans. I can also zoom out, and I could have zoomed in, and I'm doing that by utilizing my mouse wheel. Now, if you are using some type of device that has a touchscreen, such as a Microsoft Surface Pros or an iPad by chance, you can always pinch to zoom. That is always an option. You can also utilize a finger, just hold it down on the screen to allow for you to pan around, so forth and so on. But once we get to the opposite end of that dimension line, we're going to simply select there. All we have told the system is that essentially from point A, which was here, to point B, which was here, was 39 feet 1 inch. And what that does is that allows for now all of our measurements going horizontally or vertically to be within scale. Now you can repeat this step and also go vertical if you wanted to. I could come back in, rescale it, and go vertical. The only time that I recommend dealing with that is anytime that you're dealing with a set of scanned-in blueprints. When dealing with a set of scanned-in blueprints, sometimes those blueprints can stretch depending on how you're running them through the scanner. And if that case occurs, I always recommend going ahead and scaling it both directions. So. All right, so at this point here, we're going to get into covering the basic Takeoff functionalities. At this point here, we have a few different tools. What we're going to cover is covering how to do a basic area, a basic linear, and a basic count. Looking at our area button up here at the top, this is our Takeoff and digitizing section. The first one, like I said, is our area button. This area button allows for us to come in, when selected, allows for us to go through and calculate out total square footages. So for example, if I was wanting to look at this whole entire room square footage for example, to calculate out 3/4 inch tongue and groove sheathing. At this point here, I can simply come in and say this is the total floor plan square foot, for example. Underneath that, we have the area type. The area type gives us a couple different options. So for example, standard area and roof area in cubic yards. Cubic yards we probably won't utilize too much for the simple fact that most of the time when utilizing this, for example, you're doing this for asphalt, for concrete, so forth and so on. Obviously, we're selling sticks, so we're looking to do things such as our standard area and our roof area. If we select our standard area, which gives us just a standard square footage count, we can then select the Keller, drop this down, and this will be the Keller of the measurement that you're about to take. You can adjust your transparency. If you adjust it up to 10, that makes it less transparent, so you can't see it through it too easily. If you go to 0, it allows for you to be much more transparent and allows for you to see through it a lot easier. I like to hover somewhere between 7 and 8 myself personally. If we're just simply square footing a place, for example, we could just do a quick price per square foot. So if we are doing a lot of square foot estimating, which I know some of our locations do, they know that there is a price per square foot that they utilize. Very quickly you can come in and type in this price per square foot, do a quick square foot estimate. And let's go ahead and hit the start button here, and we'll start our measurement. So once we select the start button, we know we're in measurement mode because this little button up here, which is our start and stop of digitizing, is currently in the red, which indicates that we are in drawing mode. To get started, you simply select by left clicking on one of your corners of where you want to start your first measurement. So let's go ahead and select there. Now, all you need to do is simply point and click on each corner around this perimeter. Now, if you would like to get your measurements a little straighter, you can simply go underneath the options menu, and inside of here there's this thing called Enable Ortho. What that does is that locks you at 90 and 45 degrees and I think 22.5 degrees. If you select the Enable Ortho, as you can see, it kind of locks into those measurements a little bit better. So I can go up, select this, and go around my perimeter. Once again, just pointing and clicking. And there we go. Now I select the stop button, and that'll stop the measurement. I can see that we're 1161 square foot. If by chance I needed to deduct or subtract an area out, for example, 4 stair openings, you can also do that. To do that, you need to select either on the left-hand slide the measurement that you want, and then also select it on the screen. And by selecting the options button again, you can select what's called subtract from area. By selecting subtract from area, what this is going to do is it's going to provide you an opportunity to draw around, for example, these stair openings. So if I need to deduct this out, I can simply click here, to here, to here, to here, to there. Once I do that, it's going to adjust my square footage. So now I can see that I have 1143.10 square foot based off of that. And there we go. And that's how to do a basic square foot takeoff. Let's go ahead and repeat this step, and let's go ahead and take a look at our roof section. So doing a square footage on a roof is now even easier thanks to the area tool and the roof area tool. So for example, let's go ahead and first once again select our scale, and I'm going to once again use this 39.1, hit scale, hit start. Simply go from this point. Once again, you can select the ortho, enable ortho. There you go. And I'll offer that a lot straighter measurement. Once again, if I want to do my 812 areas, I can simply select my area button now that my scale is done. I can come in and name this, and I'm going to call this 812 roof area square foot. I can select my area type, such as my roof area, then select 812 here. I can select the color. I can once again adjust it. And if I'm doing a square footage takeoff, we can simply type in a price per square foot here if we know what that price is. So let's go ahead and hit start. Whenever I'm ready, I simply hit my first point. I'm going to start here, work my way around the perimeter, get to the end point, click back at the origin, and when I'm ready to continue the next measurement, for example this, I could go ahead and go around here. Now as I'm clicking around here, I could have went all the way around the full 812 perimeter if I wanted to, but to ensure things such as this area right here, which is actually an overframe issue, if I would have went all the way around here, I potentially could have missed this little section here. But either way, utilizing the software to do this in this fashion versus doing it by hand is still a ton faster. So So I always recommend drawing out each plane of the roof if you can. And there we go. Let's go ahead and hit stop. Stop the measurement. We can now see all of our 812. So in the back we have a 312 area. So here's our 812, 1147 square foot. If we wanted to do 312, we could repeat the steps, and we just say that this is the 312 roof area square foot. Once again, selecting the roof area tool, dropping this down, now selecting 312. And then at this point here, we'll color coordinate this to different color, so that way we can tell what it was 812 and what was 312. We go ahead and hit start. We're now ready to digitize. So we draw this around. And there we go. Select the stop button, and there's our square footages. If you need to select any of these areas, you need to once again make sure that you select the area here on the left hand side, the measurement that you want to select. You have to select that to be able to select it on the screen. Let's go ahead and go back to our floor plan, and let's go ahead and draw out a linear. With our linear, at this point here, we can go through and select it. But let's say, for example, we want to go ahead and hide our current area because it's going to be in the way. And as you add more layers and do more measurements, you may want to hide these layers. To do that, you simply select the eyeball here. Once selecting the eyeball, you can then go in and now select the linear button and proceed with your measurements. So let's say, for example, we're going to do this 2 by 6, 9 foot exterior wall is a measurement that we'd like to utilize. At this point here, we select the standard linear. Now there is also a wall area measurement that allows for us, for example, to enter a wall height and a number of wall sides. So if we're trying to figure out the surface area of a wall, we could do that. So for example, this wall here would have been 9 foot, and we could say that we only want to figure out one wall side to calculate that total square footage. Let's go ahead and hit the standard linear. Let's do the linear width of 6 inches. This is just basically saying how wide do we want our line as we're drawing it out. And I like to use the line width based off of the width of the wall or the material that we're shipping. So for example, 2 by 6s, we're gonna, I will utilize this as a 6-inch wall width, line width. At this point here, we hit the linear color, and let's go ahead and make this red. Let's brighten it up. Let's go up to 9, make it nice and bright. Once again, if you're doing price per linear foot, you can enter that in here if you would like. We go ahead and hit start, and once again, select our start point, and just start digitizing around here. So let's go ahead and quickly calculate this around the perimeter. Now, if I accidentally click on a bunch of points by accident, where I do not want those points to be, you can simply select the undo button and we'll take you back to the previous point. So once again, oops. All right, let's back it up. There we go. All right, so let's go ahead and let's measure down here. Let's keep measuring around, getting all this 2 by 6 wall. And there we go. So there's our exterior wall. Whenever we're finished, once again, hit the stop button to stop your measurement. We can see that we have 159.01 linear feet around this perimeter. We can then repeat these steps, for example, with interior walls. So let's go ahead and select the linear button. Let's go to an interior wall. And we're going to say that this is a 2 by 4, 9 foot interior wall. At this point here, once again, we hit standard linear. I'll do a 4-inch wall width or line width this time. And I will go with blue. Actually, let's go with green. Here we go. Green. Once again, you can enter your price per linear foot, hit start, and then we continue. So at this point here, you can measure. I'm going to go ahead and measure through my door openings. When I get to the end of that measurement, you simply double click, and that stops your measurement. That allows for you to continue on to the next. Double click, to the end, double click. Down through here, double click, double click. Let's go ahead and work our way around. And then when we're done, we simply hit the stop button. Now, as you can see, or may have noticed, I missed a wall here. I've already stopped my measurement, but I need to add an additional wall. This works for every tool, such every area, linear, or count tool. If you need to add an additional line to this, simply once again select the item over here on the left, hit the start button, and that will allow for you to come back and add that missed line. If I needed to, for example, delete that line, I can simply select it, hit delete, and it'll delete. Once again, adjusting your square footage over here on the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and add it back. And there we go. And that's how to complete a linear. All right, last, for basic digitizing tools, we're going to look at the count tool. The count tool allows for us to simply come in and, for example, let's say that we just want to count interior doors. You can then select the count type, which is basically just the shape. So for example, a star, a circle, a triangle, plus, square, diamond. Let's go ahead and let's go with the plus sign. So we select the plus sign. We can then select the color. I'm just going to randomly go down through here, select the color. You can adjust your transparency. If you know a price per, you can enter in a price per here. Your size, once again, is all dependent on inches. I think it defaults, if I remember correctly, around 12 inches. I like to, depending on what I'm doing, make the size a little bigger, so I'll go to a 24 inch. And basically that is just the width of the shape that you're about to stamp onto the blueprint. So whenever we're ready, we just hit start, and then I can go through and count out all of my interior doors. And we'll just go ahead and include this bifold anyways. And there we go. All right, so there's all of my interior doors. When I'm done, I just simply hit stop. I can see they have a total of 7 here. Now, when doing a basic estimate, if you want to see these numbers, you can simply export them out here. This is just a simple way to export those out. You can export them to HTML, which will open up a web browser. So if I go ahead and select, and you can select Excel or HTML, and for today I'm just going to show you the HTML. You can export all. Export all basically is every measurement that was done on all pages, or if you only want to export out just the selected document, you can do that. But let's go ahead and let's select export all so we can see our roof plan and our floor plan. So we select export all, and there we go. And it's going to basically drop it into a page here for you. It's going to show you, for example, area, total square foot, base number. So it's going to provide you with all of your base numbers here. And once again, if you would have exported this to Excel, it would have showed you the same thing. Once again, this just gives you that color indication of what measurement colors were on the page. So if you need to look very quickly at this, you can see what those base numbers are. So, all right. And that is how to complete a basic takeoff. Next, we're going to go through the estimating overview. Let's go ahead and go to our estimating located on the left-hand side. Within here, you're going to have 2 different items. One's called templates, one's called parts catalog. So, what are parts and templates? Essentially, to explain, let's go ahead and open the parts catalog. This is the 84 Lumber Master Parts Catalog, which is created and controlled here by myself at corporate. I will continue to add more and more parts to this catalog as we progress. But looking at, for example, a wall system, you can see that there's a lot of different material, for example, wood studs. Within these wood studs, you can see that we have things such as a 2x4 by 104 and 5/8. We have 2x4 105s. We have 2x4 12s, 2x4 8s, just standard 2x4 8s. So for example, these are all pre-formulated components that were built. So essentially what a part is the pieces of material that we sell, whether it is, our sticks, all of our plating, all of our studs, our sheathing, for example, any of our floor sheathing, roof sheathing, wall sheathing, house wrap, shingle, drywall, whatever it might be, trim, whatever it might be. These are the items that are built within the system, and that is essentially what a part is. As we look at, for example, wood studs, these components that are built within the wood studs are pre-formulated using industry standard formulas that allow for you to calculate this material. So for example, a wood stud would be calculated based off of a total linear footage and an on-center spacing. If you were looking at, for example, a plate, wall plates, maybe you're looking at a bottom plate, this would be calculated by a total linear footage divided by the length of that material and however many, and then multiplied by how many plates that you would like to apply, whether it's a single bottom plate or a double top plate, so forth and so on. So all this material is pre-formulated within this component. These components make up a template. The way that I like to think of a template slash assembly is that it is a scenario. So for example, a scenario would be an exterior wall or a 2x6 9-foot exterior wall, such as the one we drew within the linear. By taking a look at that scenario, that 2x6 9-foot wall, you need to build it, and to build it you need to apply pieces of material or parts to it. So that is essentially what a template is. It is a grouping of components that make up that scenario, template, or assembly. So for example, if we were looking at roof sheathing, maybe we would want to calculate, for example, the measurement value would be an area roof sheathing, and we would want to calculate out, for example, the amount of sheets based off of that. So 7/16, maybe 15 or 30 pound felt. Maybe we even want to throw shingles on top of that. So that would be those components that would make up that scenario or that template. So how to create a template? Well, there's a couple different ways we can do that. So within this parts catalog, once again, this parts catalog is controlled by us here at corporate, from a corporate level. If you would like to add additional components to that, we will have a submittal process that will allow for you to add components. Each one of these items that are within here, for example, just to quickly show you, do contain our point of sale system. So as you can see, this is a description that comes within our point of sale system. It also has a description of what it is. It is a wall stud, and it also indicates our part number. We also have within our work breakdown structure our PMA category also located here. These items will be utilized for future reporting features that we are currently in the process of specifying. Each one of these components, and if I look within here, this is what we call, if I select it again, the properties. These individual parts contain a lot of different properties. For example, estimating. These are things such as the area value, count value, linear value, the quantity, which is our formulation to calculate this material, our pricing. If we were going to put pricing in, this would be some of those pricing avenues here that we would have within it. They have we have what's called variables. These are variables such as waste percentage, load. I'll explain that here in just a bit. And then another variable, for example, such as on-center spacing. And then once again, our work breakdown structure, which contains a few things such as phase, location, and PMA. So let's go ahead and let's dig in a little bit more to how to utilize these to build templates. So let's go ahead and hit close. If we go within our template screen, we can select what's called an add a new template. By selecting add a new template, I'll come in here and I'll simply select the template name. and I'm going to say that this is '84 lumber assemblies. At this point here, just select general, the icon, select whatever you want. Color, you can color coordinate this accordingly, and then at the end of this here, you're going to have a user group. What you'll do at this point here is you're going to want to select the user group or your basically your store that's located within here. So for right now, you can see that we have a few different ones in here. So for example, the Danville, I'm going to go ahead and select, for example, I'm just going to put it in my junk folder for right now, and go ahead and hit save. All right, and there we are. So now within this screen here, we can simply come in and we can edit this name if we'd like. We can duplicate this assembly template database, and I'll explain that in just a short bit. And then underneath here we have the plus sign. Now what the plus sign allows for us to do it allows for us to basically build out a folder structure. Where I always like to start with my folder structure is I like to start with how I'm going to build the home. So obviously we're building the home from the bottom up. Our clients are building these homes from the bottom up. We're estimating from the bottom up. So I like to build my folder structure from the bottom up. So I always start with, for example, my basement. I simply hit save. That will then create me a basement folder. If I drop this down, you can see that here. I can go ahead and add more folders. So for example, I want to add a first floor. Hit save. Let's go ahead. Let's add a second floor. And then lastly, let's add a roof. Now, if you are dealing with multifamily or commercial projects, your folder structure may be completely different than what you're seeing here. Once again, build your folder structure out as you would essentially estimate your project. So once again, if you are dealing with multifamily, multi-level units, you may want to take this up to 5, 5th, 6th, 7th floor if you want. That is completely up to however you would like to do that. So at this point here, I'm going to go ahead and say this is my roof. And let's hit save. Now, within each one of these items, we can go ahead and once again build out a folder. So for example, if we want to put an assembly, which I'll show you that assembly or /template, we can go through and do that. But let's go ahead and let's look at let's actually just start with our first floor here, since it's what we're going to be drawing within. Let's select our first floor. We're going to select a folder, and I'm going to say that this is subfloor assemblies. Oops. Hit save, and it's going to once again add that folder underneath here. So if I drop this down, there we go. I could then go ahead and select, for example, exterior wall. And I can continue this process through pulling in an interior wall. So I can select this again, selecting my interior wall. And there we go. All right, so subfloor assemblies, for example. And at this point here, I'm ready to go ahead and start adding an assembly underneath this. So let's go ahead and let's select an assembly. Once I select an assembly, it's basically allowing for me to select how I want to measure this. So for example, if I want to measure this via an area, because that's how we're going to calculate our subfloor material, I simply select the area button. Once I select that area button, I can now provide a name for it. So I can say that this is 3/4 inch TNG subfloor material. I can then go through and select my area type, such as my standard area. I select my color, and I can say that I want to go ahead and do this in this coral, Once again, if I want to put a price per square foot, I could do that here, but let's go ahead and hit start. Once we select start, you'll see that at that point here, we have that assembly. So here's that assembly, 3/4 inch tongue and groove subfloor. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a scenario. So what material do we need to apply to allow for this to calculate out each individual piece of material to allow for this subfloor to be calculated? So let's go ahead and let's select the plus sign, and at that point now we can add a part. Within adding a part, you can select the part type. For us, we are going to be utilizing material, but if we are dealing with any type of installed projects and we need to apply a labor cost behind this, we could always do that also. If we are for some reason dealing with equipment or have another scenario outside of that, we could select this. At this point here, we're going to go ahead and select our material. We're going to go ahead and go in and type in our part name. So part name, a lot of these, like I said, this is pulling directly from that part catalog. A lot of these components are built. If by chance your point of sale number and your actual description of your material is not in here, I'll show you how to add that. So let's go ahead and let's select part name, and I'm looking for some 23-30 seconds. And once I drop this down, you can see all these different parts. You can see the description, the name that comes inside of our point of sale system, once again, and you can also see the description of their use. So for example, these are floor sheathing. As you can see here, here's stair landing sheathing. So if you're doing a stair landing, a 4x4 stair landing, this is your sheathing that you would want to utilize for that. So let's go ahead and go with the standard 23x32, 23-30 seconds by 4x8 OSB TNG. Once I select it, it's going to update everything. You hit save. At this point here, if you wanted to, you can look at your properties and just verify that everything looks good. Now, within your variables, and I'll explain how these are used later, you can adjust such things as waste. So for example, I have everything defaulted at 10% waste. If you wanted to adjust this waste, you can go ahead and hit 8. Now what that does is that saves it to the template. So every time you use that template, 8% waste will be what is defaulted. And then you can modify it on the fly as you're doing your measurements, and that allows for you to adjust, for example, for different subcontractors or different builders that you're working with. Some guys may use a higher percentage of waste. Also, it depends on the complexity of the job that you're dealing with. You may need to adjust that accordingly. So let's go ahead and hit make this, just turn that back to 10 for now. Hit save, and there you go. So now that we're ready, we hit save here. Make sure it says save successfully, close it, and now we can see our material here. Now if we wanted to add, for example, subfloor adhesive, we could do that also. We can go into part, type this down, and I'm just going to start typing in subfloor, and here we go. Here's some of the subfloor adhesive we have. So let's say, for example, we want this 28 ounces here, or maybe actually let's go with this 29 ounce subfloor adhesive here. So I select this 29 ounce subfloor adhesive. I once again hit save, hit properties, verify. Now at this point in time, if this is not the correct material that you're utilizing in your system, you can come in, modify this name, and put in our correct point of sale number. If you wanted to do that, you could do that. You could just simply come in, modify this whatever you wanted it to be, and then at that point hit save. And what that will do is that will save that item, and essentially it will be part of your template. So once again, if by chance if your market you do not stock the current list of subfloor adhesives we have in here, you could feel free to add those. You can also contact me once again, and I will add that subfloor adhesive for you. Once it's added, you can simply come in and quickly add it to your material. So once again, there we go. So we're happy with all this. We could come in once again and modify our waste percentages if we wanted to, but at this point here, let's go ahead and hit save. Hit close, and there's our assembly. So we essentially have built out 3/4 inch TNG subfloor material. At this point here, if we wanted to create a different assembly for a different type, maybe an Advantech tongue and groove floor system, we can do that by simply duplicating this. If I select duplicate, what that will do is that's going to recreate It's going to come in and it's going to say 3/4 inch, and I'm just going to type in Advantech tongue and groove subfloor. Select our different color maybe. Hit start. And what that will do is going to create it as a subcategory. So inside of here we can just delete this component out. Let's go ahead and delete this one out real quick, and we will swap out with the correct one that we want to utilize. And let's go ahead and drop this down, hit parts again, material 23, and here is the Advantech here. Simply select it, hit save. Once again, here's your point of sale number. Everything is saved successfully, so I save it, hit close, and there is our Advantech there. So once again, as you build out that first assembly, you can then quickly go through and duplicate and quickly modify and build out different assemblies for different scenarios. So once again, if you have builders utilizing just standard OSB tongue and groove versus Advantech or Gold Edge, you can modify those accordingly. So let's go ahead and let's look at our wall assemblies. So at this point here, our exterior wall assemblies, I'm going to go ahead and select an assembly here. Once I select that, I need to select the value that I'm going to measure. Once again, I'm not going to use an area, so I want to make sure I select the linear. Once you select linear, you can then provide a name for it. So I'm going to say that this is a 2x4 8-foot exterior wall, and maybe I'll put on slab, so that way I know it's on slab. Or if you want, I like to, in all honesty, put in parentheses that it's on a slab or a crawl or whatever it might be. So we're gonna need a treated bottom plate. We can come in here, we can then select standard linear. We can go into here and hit the wall width, once again 4 inch, just like we did with the basic takeoff functionality. Go through here, select a random color. Let's go with this orange. Jump this up. Once again, you can put in price per linear foot. We hit start here, and at that point there, it is created here, and there we go. So now I can go in, once again, adding parts. So very quickly, I'm going to go through, add some parts. I'm going to type in a 2x4 by 16, and here is some 2x4 16s. I'm going to use a number 2 treated bottom. So I'm going to select that, hit save, and once again I can go through here, check my variables. So looking at my variables, here is a question here, for example, number of plates. If this was a double bottom plate, for example, I could come in, modify inside of my formula, select 2, hit save. It now is going to allow for it to calculate 2 of those. But since we're using a single bottom plate, we're going to leave it as a single bottom plate and continue on. At this point here, I could go through and modify anything else if need be, but I'm going to go ahead and say I'm good. So I'm going to hit save and then close. I'm going to go in here, I'm going to continue building this out, adding for example, a stud, say 2x4 by, let's say 8, by 8. Here's a wall stud. So say, for example, I'm just going to use a 2x4 by 8 standard old SPF wall stud. I'm not doing a pre-cut. I can select this. Now maybe I wanted to do pre-cut. I can select 92s, and here we go. Here's this 2x4 SPF 92 and 5/8. I simply select it, hit save. I can go into properties, once again verify everything, and then if I wanted to change this, I could. For example, on center spacing, I like to utilize 16 inches on center and adjust my waist percentages accordingly. I also measure through door openings, allow for jacks and kings and cripples as need be, and essentially allow for my waist percentage to pick up those extra pieces for corners and so forth. So at that point there, you can go ahead and hit save, and we can close this out and we're good to go. Next up, let's open this up here. Next up, we want to go ahead and add in a 2x4 by 16, and looking for some standard top plates. Here's a number 2 or betters. Go ahead and hit this. Once again, I can adjust this. We can look at my waist percentage. I can see that I'm calculating 2 plates because this is a double top. Material length, once again, 16 footer, waist percent 10, and so forth and so on. Simply hit save and hit close. Now I could continue on adding things such as wall sheathing, and let's go ahead and add just a real quick thing of wall sheathing here. So I can come in and say 7/16. There it is, bilinear wall sheathing. And I'm happy with that. Simply hit save, go to properties. Now within these properties here, when it goes into the variables, I'll need to look at things such as wall height. This is an 8-foot high wall, so I'm good. But if I needed to pick up an extra foot, for example, like a band board going around a floor system, I could jack this up to 9 foot to pick up that extra foot, or 9.5 foot, whatever it would be, to pick up that little extra bit of band board along the bottom there. So let's go ahead and hit save there. I'm good, so I hit save, and it's saved successfully. Hit close, and there we go. Now once again, like I said, I can go through and I can continue to add the last few things. Maybe we want to add, for example, just some real quick temp wall bracing. So 2x4 and let's say that they like 10 footers on a temp wall bracing. I drop this down. Here's a 2x4 by 10. I select temp wall bracing. Once again, look at this here, and 10% spacing in feet. So every 10 feet, how many, we're going to add basically one board every 10 feet. So that is essentially the formulation for that. So every 10 foot, add a piece of temp bracing. If they like to space it at 12 foot or even a little shorter, maybe 8 foot, you can adjust that accordingly. So once again, hit save, hit close, and there we go. So at this point here, we've built out a 2x4 exterior wall on slab. We've added bottom plates, studs, top plates, sheathing, and a temp wall bracing to help hold that wall in place. At this point here, if I wanted to do, for example, a 9 foot, I could do that also. I could duplicate this very quickly. So we can come in here and we'll duplicate this 2x4 8-foot exterior wall, just like we did the 3/4 inch tongue and groove. I'll once again select this as a different color, so that way I know which is which. And we'll say that this is a 9-foot wall. I simply hit update. And there we go. There's my update there. So here's my 2x4. Now within this here, there's a couple things that you obviously need to modify. We're not going to use 92s. So let's go ahead, and I could have one deleted and hit add a part and replaced it. Or if you know your point of sale numbers, you can come in and you know the description. So for example, I know that this is 104s, and I know that if I come in here, I type in 104, so 24-10401 is the correct point of sale number for that. I simply hit save, close, and now it will modify. You'll see this is a 2x4 104s. I also need to make sure that I adjust, for example, things like my sheathing, because that wall height is changing. So I take this up to 9 foot, hit save, and close. And then essentially I have that. Now I can repeat these steps. I can go down through, copy this 2x4 over, make it a 2x6, modify a couple things very quickly, or once again, come here and create an all new assembly from scratch. So now we can repeat the steps. We can go through, we can do the roof areas too. If we do a roof area, for example, I'm just going to quickly do a roof area. I'm going to select this area here. And once again, I'm going to say that this is roof material. And then at this point here, I could say roof area. And I can adjust it, and let's say for example I'm just going to default it as 812 just for the time being. I select color for that, adjust it up, hit start. So there's my roof. I drop this open. I can add a part to that, so let's go ahead and let's add a piece of material such as a 7/16. Let's look for roof sheathing. 7/16 here, roof sheathing. So I select that. I hit start. If I go to my properties, I can then come through and take a look at all these items here. I can see that my waste percentages, so forth and so on. If I go ahead and hit save at this point and then hit close, I'm good to go. Now I can go through and add in ply clips. So for example, if I wanted to add in some ply clips, I could do that. Maybe you want to add in felt instead. So maybe I'm doing some felt. So for this one, I'm going to do 15-pound felt. So I do some 15-pound felt, hit save. I can once again look at the properties, just verify everything looks good, hit save, close, and there we go. So at this point here, we've built some subfloor, some exterior wall scenarios, and we've also done some roof material here. All right, so let's go ahead and let's continue on, and let's now actually use these to complete an estimate. Okay, to use these templates, you need to go back into your bid management, select the job that you would like to estimate. Let's go back to that demo project, select Start Takeoff. Now let's go to our floor plan. So here's our floor plan. Once again, if we want, we can shut off these measurements and hide those. If by chance you need to delete these measurements, you can also once again delete those by selecting the measurement and then select the delete button. Make sure it says delete measurement and not delete page. And whenever you're ready, you can simply select yes to delete those, and it'll delete those out of there. So very quickly, I'm going to delete these items. So that way we can start with a fresh plan. And there we go. Okay, so to utilize the templates that we just built, we need to select our templates button here, located next to the Pages tab. We select the Templates tab. Within here, we can see that we have the 84 lumber or 84 demo templates. And then underneath there that's the template group that we belong to. Once again, that template group that you will assign yourself to these templates to will be your store number. Once again, you will see your store number and your store's description located within this template group. So let's go ahead and let's select the 84 lumber assemblies. So within here, we built a few. So for example, we didn't build a basement, we didn't build second floor, first floor, or roof. We didn't build basement or second floor, we built first floor and roof. So at this point here, let's go ahead and let's select the first floor because that's what we're working within. So at this point here, we want to calculate out our total subfloor assemblies. Once again, these are the two components that we built. So for example, we have 3/4 inch tongue and groove subfloor material, 3/4 inch Vantech tongue and groove subfloor material. So at this point here, we could go through and we can launch. Now what these little buttons are just similar to the start button up here. As you can see, it looks like a play button. Once you select that there, it will launch the template and allow for you to start your estimate. So let's go ahead and let's say that we're just doing standard old tongue and groove flooring. So we select this. Now what happens is just like it was when you were getting ready to do your digitizing, you will see the area tool here. Once again, you can come in and quickly modify this stuff. All this next scenario is essentially allows for you to customize it on the fly as you're doing this estimate. Because as we know, we may have a very solid template set. That template set may change based on the builder that we are currently working with. This builder may utilize different variables such as waste percentages, so forth and so on, like I mentioned earlier. So this is that area that you get one last chance to adjust those items as you are getting ready to start your estimate and your takeoff. So let's go ahead. We're good with this. We're happy with everything. We hit start. The next step pops up what's called the takeoff properties or the variables. So those are the variables that you asked for an input value behind. So for example, 2330 seconds 4x8 OSB tongue and groove. We have a variable called waste. So the property name, these are what you're adjusting, and then these are what they belong to. So for example, I can see my waste percent here for the tongue and groove is that. Maybe I want to drop it down to that 8% that I mentioned earlier. I simply hit update. And we have also too what's called the load. The load functionality is utilized for a future report that we are currently working on building and structuring based off of the load. Once you drop this down, there'll be a pre-configured load list here that was created by myself to allow for you to select, for example, what this belongs to. So at this point here, I know this belongs to number 6, first floor subfloor framing. Once I select that, I can simply hit update. Now once again, I can drop this down. You do not have to utilize this functionality. This is just an option that is available to you. Once we are able to create the report, that report will allow for us to group these items based off of that load value. So once again, first floor, subfloor framing. So let's go ahead and hit save. And at that point, once again, we just draw around, and I'm going to quickly fly around this here. We just draw around this perimeter to calculate out the total square footage for this. And once again, like I said earlier, if you accidentally click on the wrong spot, hit the undo button to back up your measurement. There we go. Hit stop to stop my measurement, and there we are. Once again, if I wanted to subtract out an area for a stair opening, I could do that by simply selecting the options button and selecting subtract from area. So now at this point here, we've created this, we've measured this out. We want to see how much material we calculated. If I select the estimate button, this will show you my estimates. It's going to basically output and show you that on the floor plan, the page that I estimated it on, I had 1146.56 square feet. It's going to go through and it's going to show you a few different things. Obviously, the cost, markup, price each, and price total, if we would have filled those items out, would output that. Though we do 99% of our pricing will always be done within our point of sale system at this time. If you would decide that you want to use those prices, you could put those in here. But the most important key things is once again the part name, the description of it, part number, and then if everybody's wondering what the CSI division, a lot of the commercial guys will be more familiar with that. It's just a grouping utilized in a lot of your commercial aspects. For example, wood and plastics is division 6. That is currently what's selected there. But once again, the key thing is your quantity. So we can see our total quantity here was 39 sheets. We can also verify and look very quickly at what our waste percentage was, and that was 8% waste. Our subfloor adhesive, 14 tubes, and that is based off of 10% waste. So let's go ahead and let's continue on this let's go ahead and continue through this here and get into, for example, our first floor exterior walls. So let's go ahead and say we had an exterior wall 2x4, though this is a 2x6. We'll say that this is a 2x4 for now. Once again, I select this here, and I'm going to switch this color because it's a little too close in color to what I'm dealing with there. Raise this up. I can hit start. Once again, here's all these variables so I can see all these items. So if I needed to adjust these items accordingly, I could. Once again, my load, this is part of my first floor lumber framing. Once again, load here, this is the same thing. I drop this down, first floor lumber framing, hit update. So you can adjust these, once again, adjust these loads accordingly. And you can continue on down through this process here. So once again, if you're happy with all of your variables that you want to enter in, for example, once again, this here is your temple wall bracing, a 10-foot on center. Looking up here at your studs, your 2x4, 92 and 5/8. Maybe you're doing 1 per foot. Maybe you need to do this, for example, an interior wall. You're doing this at 24 inches on center. Depending on what the on-center spacing is that's specified on the blueprints, is what you'd want to utilize this for. And then once again, adjust that waste. Here's the waste percentage for it. Adjust that waste percentage accordingly to pick up additional studs and corners, depending on how their corner framing is. And also to, like I said, I like to measure through my opening 6 foot and under, just to allow for basically all of my cripples and my jacks and any of my king studs if need be for those, and it'll pick up that extra material for that. So adjust your waste percentage depending on what those are there. So let's go ahead and hit save, and we're ready to go ahead and start a measurement. And once again, very quickly draw this out to allow for this to be calculated. And I'm just kind of clicking around here quickly. And hit stop. And if I want, I can come back over here and let's turn off the area so that way you can see those items. Once again, if you don't line these up, if you select the area, the linear first, and remember, if you cannot select this, you're trying to figure out why you can't select it, you have to make sure that you select the item on the left. The advantage of this is if you have a ton of layers, this will help isolate that layer and allow for you just to select only that layer. So once I select it, if I select it once, it goes into the move mode, which allows for me to move this around. If I need to adjust this, I select it and it goes into what's called node mode. And this allows me to grab these little nodes, click on these little nodes, and adjust those nodes accordingly. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at what we estimated. So let's go ahead and select the stop button, hit estimate. We go into here, we can see that we have 159 linear feet. If I drop this down, I can see that I have the total bottom plates of 11, 132 studs, total top plates 22, OSB wall sheathing 44, and temp wall bracing at 18. Lastly, let's quickly go into our roof plan. Let me go ahead and hide these items real quick. And let's go ahead and let's start actually with the 312 area in the back. Once again, select your templates tab. And let's drop open our roof here. Roof material, I simply select this. I drop this open. I adjust my item here. And let's go ahead and let's go with Indian red for the back. Hit start. Once again, you can adjust these items such as your load if you wanted to. And inside of your load, you have what's known as the roof sheathing and framing. Hit update. Once again, select this. And roof sheathing and framing. Hit update. You could adjust your waste percentages, so forth and so on by selecting this plus sign. And let's go ahead and hit save. At that point, just click around once again. Hit stop. We can launch it now for the 812, and we'll say that we're good with the 812. We're all good there. Hit start. Once again, drop this down, just adjust as loads, and we're shooting framing. There we go. And maybe I want to adjust my waste percentage on this because it's a little more cut up. I'm going to take this up to a 12% waste, and let's go ahead and hit save. And then at that point there, once again, if I turn on ortho, I can measure this out very quickly around the 812 areas, calculating out that material. Hit stop. Back over to our pages tab. There we go. And once again, select estimate. We can see what pages we're taking off on. We can see that this is our material here. Now I could have defined this, and when I originally entered and launched this, where it was just called roof material, I could have typed in 312 roof material so I could tell what was what. I also have the colors to indicate that also on the plan, but I could have relabeled those to indicate that those were 312 areas and 812 areas. But either way, here is the total sheets for that. Here are the total rolls, total sheets, and total rolls. All right, one last thing I wanted to show you very quickly is if by chance you need to modify any of these variables. So for example, you wanted to change that roof material to 812, you can simply double click, and I could change this now to 812 roof area, just like I mentioned. I could have done that. I could go through and readjust my variables. So for example, if my waste percentage needed to be adjusted, I can adjust that. Let's go ahead and let's select this here. And then once again, I could come in and change that. So if you need to update any variables or any of the items that you've estimated, you just simply double click this here to relaunch and re-update those. If I go to my estimate and I look at this again, you can now see that the 812 roof area is here. Everything's adjusted accordingly, so forth and so on. So there we go. So lastly, if we need to export this out, we have a couple options. So for example, we can export to Excel by selecting export to Excel. it will export this out. If you select export to Excel and for some reason this is not working, make sure that you look at your pop-ups within your system, and make sure that those items are selected to allow pop-ups for this application. Also too, something I forgot to mention in the beginning, the recommended browser for our use on this is Google Chrome. This is the recommended browser. 1, it allows for a lot more speed over Internet Explorer. 2, Microsoft has a tendency of developing stuff on the website that are not always the greatest. This information is what I received from the Square Takeoff guys. I guess recently Microsoft released an update that is messed with a lot of web-based softwares, and theirs is one of them. Microsoft is in the process of actually fixing that, but for our standpoint, we as a company prefer the use of Google Chrome. If you do not have Google Chrome, you can always search for it inside of Internet Explorer or Microsoft Edge. Go to google.com and you'll see where you can add Google Chrome there. If you have an issue adding Google Chrome, please notify me and I will work with our teams here at corporate to get Google Chrome on your system. Once again, Google Chrome is the preferred method for accessing this software. Okay, so once again, export to Excel. I open this up. It's going to open up an Excel spreadsheet, and this Excel spreadsheet, give me 1 second, is right here. This will, let's go ahead and enable editing. This will allow for us to pull these items over. Once again, we can import these systems into our point of sale system, and I will do that in a future video. And we are going to have a dedicated CSV export report very soon also, that will be dedicated just to going into our point of sale system. So, but once again, things like, for example, cost each these items we do not care about. Here is the values that we do care about. And if we are key punching this currently into the point of sale system, here's our part number to do that. And then also too, here's our description line, so that way we can break that apart within our estimate. So, all right, so that is getting it out to an Excel spreadsheet. Once again, invoice report. If you want to kick it into an invoice report, you can also do that too. It's a very raw. It does not contain the item number at this point in time, but it does contain the quantities here. So if you want to look very quickly at those quantities, you can do that. For example, if you have, let's look at here, we have 15 pound felt. If you want to combine these items into one group, you can always do that too. Select group by part number, and it will group those together and quantify those together. Once again, hitting the invoice report. Once again, hitting the export to Excel, you can export this data out, and at that point there, it will export it into that format. And let's go ahead and select that again. And there we go. And it'll kind of clean it up a little bit more and condense those. The descriptions won't be correct because it's condensing these descriptions, and sometimes you'll have 2x4/8 in one place, 2x4/8 in another place used for two different things, but it will quantify those correctly. So disregard the descriptions at this point. Simply use the part name, part number, and the quantities. So, okay, that is it for today, and I thank everybody for watching the 84 Lumber estimating training video series. Next in the training video series, we'll have a more in-depth look, advanced look into how to formulate the back end of parts, and so that way you can create these parts on the fly and build these into your templates as need be. Once again, we'll show you how to do that here in the future. So until next time, thank you for watching the video and have a wonderful day.